Discover the incredible ways 10,000 medieval soldiers overcame 3 months of harsh winter survival. Jake stepped off the bus, the cold air biting at his skin like the echoes of gunfire still ringing in his ears. A shroud of gray clouded the sky over his small Midwest town, a stark contrast to the warm sun-soaked days he remembered. He glanced at the familiar streets, the houses that once bustled with life now eerily quiet, as if the laughter had fizzled out like the warm embers of a dying fire. But it was home. Coming back was supposed to feel like a homecoming, like slipping into a warm sweater. Instead, a chill crept into his bones, heavier than the snow accumulating on his shoulders. As Jake trudged through the snow to his family's old house, memories swirled like the delicate snowflakes dancing through the air. He recalled the barbecues in the backyard, laughter spilling over like a drink that no one wanted to finish. But now, that laughter felt like a ghost haunting the memories of his family. Inside, his father sat hunched over the kitchen table, the newspaper strewn before him a testament to his increasingly blighted hopes. "Hey, Dad," Jake said, his voice faltering under the weight of unspoken words. His father barely glanced up, his expression etched with disappointment and bitterness, two contrasting emotions igniting in the icy air between them. "We've got bills stacking up, Jake," his father muttered, each word sharp. "The factory job, it wasn't enough before. You come back, thinking things will change? It's worse." Jake felt the tension grow, tightness settling in his chest as the burden of unfulfilled dreams drew a chasm between them. A figure darted past the window, and Jake noticed neighbors huddled together, support and community gravitating toward each other like moths to a flame. It tugged at him. The values he learned in the military surged against the chilling sting of reality. But when whispers of injustice surfaced, rumors about the town leader hoarding supplies, Jake felt a righteous fire ignite deep within him. People were struggling, and this wasn't just about his family, it was about everyone. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. A blizzard swept in, suffocating the town under its relentless grip. Homes became fortresses, and inside, resentments simmered. Jake felt the weight of his father's resentment, their visions pulling further apart. But as the wind howled outside, the town banded together. They started sharing what little they had, amounts so small yet monumental all the same. Distrustful looks were traded, but through the din of the storm, Jake could feel a flicker of hope, the fire of resilience igniting. They were more than mere neighbors, they were a community. As tensions with the leader loomed overhead, Jake could sense the unmistakable electric charge of unity beginning to surge through the air. But could they confront the truth without fracturing under the immense pressure of their shared history? The storm raged on, both outside and within. And as midnight struck, leaving them captive within themselves and each other, Jake stood on the precipice of a decision that could change everything. The question of standing united against oppression hung thick in the icy air, a pressing weight begging to be addressed. Would the bonds forged in the battlefield of life prevail, or would the blizzard rip their fragile relationships apart? The wind howled outside, rattling the window panes like the distant memories of the battles Jake had fought. A knot tightened in his stomach as he considered the dwindling supplies hidden away in the town leader's home, the heavy boots of distrust marching closer to the crumbling edges of their unity. The flame of hope had ignited a call to action within him, and Jake felt ready to embrace the storm head-on if only he could galvanize the community around him. The flickering light of his childhood home cast long shadows against the wall. Jake turned to his father, who still stared grimly at the table, the weight of lost dreams pressing him down. "Dad, we can't just sit here and do nothing while others are out there suffering. We have to help them together." At this, his father's eyes lifted slowly, a mix of confusion and surprise etched on his weathered face. "Help them? You expect people to rally behind you? They barely look at each other these days." Jake considered his father's words, but the darkness piercing his father's heart didn't dampen Jake's resolve. "We have to start somewhere," he said, feeling fiercer with each word. "If we open our doors, share what we have, it might just remind people about who we are as a community." Minutes passed like hours, the silence thumping in the corners of his mind. But then, almost imperceptibly, his father nodded. A crack in the facade of bitterness. "Maybe you're right, son." Maybe outside, the voices of neighbors cut through the blizzard's rage like beacons of light. Jake's heart raced, an electric pulse surging through him. They were gathering, he could hear them. Was this the moment he had been waiting for? He grabbed his coat, the fabric still crisp from disuse, and made a decision that ignited his spirit. "Come on, Dad. Let us do this." As they stepped onto the porch together, Jake could feel the frigid air swirl around them, wrapping like a shroud but also stoking the embers of determination within him. He looked out at their neighbors, people he'd sat next to at the diner, folks he played basketball with in the summer, mothers and fathers who shared drink recipes and gossip. A crowd formed, huddled in mismatched scarves, determination glinting in their eyes. "Listen up!" Jake shouted, his voice rising over the wind, surprising even himself with its intensity. "We can't let this blizzard win. We're the heart of this town. If we share what we have, lend a hand, we can stand strong against the cold. It's time to show them what we're made of." A wave of murmurs surged through the crowd, uncertainty warring with the hope he was trying to cultivate. "What do you mean?" a voice called out from the back, filled with skepticism. "I mean we can set up a food share, a warm place for those in need, anything. But we have to come together. If we don't, we'll be trapped by this storm, not just outside, but inside between ourselves." Jake's heart beat wildly as he scanned the faces before him. Some nodded, others hesitated, but fear was being challenged. The fight against despair had begun. He could feel it spreading like wildfire. "Are you with me?" he called again, determination in every syllable. The crowd hesitated for a moment, that crucial heartbeat hanging in the air, until one voice, then another, shouted back. "Yes." Will they find the strength to rise together? Or will the weight of betrayal become too much to bear? The storm continued to rage, but inside Jake's heart, a different kind of storm, one bursting with potential and hope, began to stir. It was only the beginning of a much larger battle to come, a battle not just against the blizzard, but against the tides of mistrust threatening to pull them apart. The crowd's response electrified Jake. Faces he'd known for years now looked back at him with a spark of something he hadn't seen in a long time: hope. The blizzard howled in protest, yet together they stood as a solid front against its fury. Jake felt the words bubble up inside him, a fervor igniting his voice. "Let us gather in the community center. We can set up a warm shelter, get supplies organized, and make sure everyone feels cared for. No one should go cold or hungry during this storm." He glanced around, gauging the reactions. A few people had pulled together their coats, and a couple of determined nods began to ripple through the crowd. He caught sight of Mrs. Henderson, who had always decorated the town's Christmas tree alone, her eyes glistening now. It seemed a spark of unity was igniting, small but persistent. "I'll bring my chili," she called, her voice filled with renewed vigor. "Me too," shouted Tom, a burly man known for his barbecue during the summer festivals. "I've got some canned goods we can bring." Jake's heart soared. This was the moment. Under the onslaught of wind, they began to disperse, each family grabbing what they could to contribute. For the first time in months, they weren't just neighbors, they were a team. Jake grabbed his father's hand, and they moved toward the community center. As they walked, the flurries danced around them. Jake could hear the joyful chatter of people beginning to share their resources and ideas. It felt surreal, as if the cold had turned into something warmer. Inside the community center, the painted walls that had once seemed so lonely now reverberated with life. On one side, people were already bringing boxes of food, blankets, and coats. Children ran around, giggling, chasing each other, a stark contrast to the grim silence of their homes. But as Jake settled into the rhythm of the activity, he spotted a familiar figure lingering by the door. It was Kelly, his childhood friend, standing alone. Her arms were crossed tightly over her chest, vulnerability painted on her face. He could see shadows flicker across her features, a mixture of uncertainty and longing. He took a deep breath, heart racing. Kelly! Come on in. We could use your baking skills. At first, she didn't move. The silence thickened as everyone turned to look at her. After a moment that felt eternal, she stepped forward hesitantly, a soft smile breaking through. I can whip up some cookies. Perfect. Jake beamed, feeling gratitude surge through him. As he watched her move towards the group, he realized something pivotal. It wasn't just about gathering supplies. It was about reigniting those connections, finding purpose in one another. As they began to organize, laughter began to fill the room, overshadowing the storm's roar outside. They made lists, shared stories, and recalled old times as they pooled together their strengths. It was in those moments that Jake no longer felt like a lone warrior against the storm, but part of a great tapestry woven together with stories of resilience. But amidst the camaraderie, Jake felt a flicker of unease. What would happen after the storm? Would this unity persist, or would the cracks of distrust resurface when the blizzard faded? In that instant, Jake vowed to protect this fragile bond. They would face whatever came, together. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from outside, jolting everyone into silence. Heads turned as a silhouette stumbled into the center, covered in snow, breathing heavily. It's Charlie, someone whispered, terror shadowing their voice. Jake's heart raced. What had happened? What news did Charlie bring? As the crowd gathered around him, ready to hear, Jake felt an electric charge in the air, the calm before the next storm. Charlie pushed his way through the door, panting heavily. He looked like he'd been in a battle with the storm itself, his coat veiled in a thick layer of snow and ice. As he caught sight of the crowd, a surge of relief washed over his face, yet it failed to mask the worry that was etched deep in his brow. Charlie! What happened? Jake stepped forward, leaving his father's side. The room buzzed with anxious whispers, and all eyes were glued to Charlie, waiting. He gulped, fists clenching as he drew in a deep breath. I was out checking on the roads, making sure folks could get to us, you know? I found Joe. Shock rippled through the crowd. Joe had been the town's mechanic, a jovial man known for his endless jokes and ability to mend just about anything. Jake's heart sank. Is he all right? Charlie shook his head, eyes wide and glassy. He got stuck trying to cross the bridge, said it collapsed. He's trapped, maybe hurt. He needs help. The room fell silent, the weight of Charlie's words crashing down like an avalanche. Jake could feel the collective anxiety like a pulse beneath the floor. They had all rushed forward to find a purpose within the storm's chaos, but this was different. This went beyond food and warmth. How do we get him out? Someone asked quietly, breaking the stillness. Jake's mind raced. It was one thing to band together to protect each other from the storm, but rescuing someone trapped in its wrath was entirely different. He glanced at the faces around him. Determination was brewing like the chili simmering in Mrs. Henderson's pot. We'll need shovels and ropes, maybe even a sled, Jake said, his voice bolstered by a surge of adrenaline. We can't leave him out there for long. Count me in, said Tom, his baritone booming with resolve. I've got a sled in my garage. I'll grab the rope, shouted another voice from the back, a woman's voice he didn't recognize but felt his own resolve deepen at the rallying cries around him. As the chaos unfolded, Jake watched Kelly snap into action too, her face transforming from uncertainty into fierce focus. She rushed to grab the supplies in the back room, her movements imbued with newfound purpose. Outside, the wind wailed, but inside, a fierce warmth blossomed. Together, they began forming a makeshift rescue team, gathering what they could: buckets, lanterns, and ropes. Jake felt a sense of urgency shimmering in the air, more potent than the panic that had threatened to take hold. Let us go, everyone, he called, taking charge. Stay close and watch out for each other. We can make it to Joe. In pairs and small groups, they ventured into the blizzard, the flurries swirling like angry spirits around them. As Jake stood at the edge of the community center, he caught a glimpse of their connection. They were no longer battling alone against the cold, they were a unified force pushing forward with purpose. In moments of adversity, the heart of a community shines brightest. Jake could feel that warmth, but as they pressed on, a gnawing worry crept back into his mind. Would they make it to Joe in time? And would that fragile unity endure when faced with real danger? As they trudged through the snow, the howling wind a constant reminder of nature's brutality, a new thought struck Jake. What if they couldn't save Joe? What would that do to the spirit they had just begun to cultivate? The icy abyss ahead loomed large, and as the group ventured deeper into the storm, they realized they were not just fighting for Joe, they were fighting for the very heart of their community. But as they neared the bridge, a sense of foreboding lingered. Was this rescue mission going to solidify their bond, or would it tear them apart? Jake's breath hung in the air, warming him for a moment. Suddenly, a ear-shattering crack echoed through the blizzard, a warning bell that something was about to change. Would the bridge hold? Would they make it to Joe? The fear was a tight coil in Jake's chest as he rushed forward, desperate to see what lay ahead. The snow whipped around Jake like angry spirits, blinding him as he reached the outskirts of the bridge. The collective courage of the group surged behind him, filling him with a flicker of hope. But that hope was soon tempered by the eerie silence that filled the space, broken only by the echoing wind. He turned to gauge the mood of the team, their faces hardened against the cold but their eyes reflecting a mix of determination and fear. Tom had a fierce grip on the sled, ready to spring into action. Kelly stood closest to him, her gaze locked on the cracked bridge, visibly trembling but resolute. They were ready to brave this together, yet the crack he'd heard still echoed in his ears. "Let's move!" Jake shouted, breaking the paralysis that had settled around them. "Stay alert and stay close." As they pressed forward, the ground felt less stable beneath their feet. With every cautious step, Jake fought against the urge to turn back. If they didn't hurry, if they lingered too long, would Joe's life hang in the balance? The creaking sounds of the bridge made each step seem heavier, and they could feel its vulnerability beneath their weight. The relentless snowfall had begun to show signs of letting up, but with it came an unsettling calm that wrapped around the group like a shroud. "Joe!" Jake called, his voice swallowed by the snow and wind. "Can you hear us?" The only response was the rustling of snowflakes, the chilling reminder that time was ticking away. He peeked over the bridge's edge, the ice-glazed water below reflecting a cruel light. Thoughts of Joe's laughter, his quick smile, flashed in Jake's mind like a beacon in the dark. They couldn't lose that. They wouldn't lose that. Suddenly, a weak cry pierced through the white noise. "Help! I'm here!" Relief washed over Jake. It was Joe! He exchanged glances with his team, and each of them seemed to exhale a breath they didn't know they were holding. "He's alive!" Kelly shouted, her voice a mixture of excitement and anxiety. "Joe! We're coming!" Jake responded, urgency driving his every move. "We need to get the sled closer," Tom shouted, pointing towards the semi-stable side of the bridge. They hastened to move the sled, carefully maneuvering it through the snow. The bridge shuddered beneath their weight, every creak screaming, yet it seemed to whisper its resilience back. They reached the edge, peering into the depths of the snow-draped ravine. "Can you see him?" someone asked, panic threading into their voice. Jake squinted through the storm, eyes searching desperately. Then he saw it. Just a few feet away, Joe was half buried under a mound of snow, struggling to free himself. His face was scrunched in agony, his breath coming out in quick puffs of steam. "Hang on, Joe! We're coming for you!" Jake yelled as he dropped to his knees in the snow, heart racing. As they worked to clear the snow, Jake felt sweat trickling down his back despite the biting cold. Each handful he tossed aside was met with a mix of hope and dread, no sense of how bad Joe's condition could be. They were so close, yet the fear of making an error loomed large. With each passing moment, Jake felt a mixture of emotions clamping around his chest: fear, determination, and something deeper. This wasn't just about saving Joe. It was about proving to each other that hope could thrive even in the dark. But as bits of snow fell away, revealing Joe's face, the happy smiles were replaced with horror. Joe's eyes were wide with pain, a shadow of his former jovial self. "Joe, can you hear me?" Jake asked, panic creeping into his tone. Something felt wrong. As Joe slowly nodded, the weight of the moment suddenly crashed down. "Get me out," Joe gasped, voice barely a whisper. The flashing lights of urgency ignited within Jake. This was just the beginning of their fight. But then, without warning, the structure trembled again, and a loud crack underscored the unsteady harmony of their rescue. Would the bridge hold them all? Jake's heart thudded in his chest, an unrelenting reminder of what they stood to lose. Jake took a breath, steeling himself. Time was slipping away. "On 3, we pull," he ordered, but would it be enough? Would they hold on long enough to save Joe, or was this hope hanging by a thread just like the bridge beneath their feet? As Jake locked eyes with Joe, fear gripped him. The tremors of the bridge were echoing the turmoil within him. 1, 2, 3. He shouted, the team drawing back and then lunging forward with every ounce of strength they had, digging their heels into the slick snow. They pulled, and suddenly the weight of Joe seemed to shift. A wave of icy cold air rushed past them as they wrestled against the snow. The collective effort surged anew, growing deeper with every hushed whisper of support from Kelly and Tom at his side. "We've got you," they echoed, breaths melding together in the frigid air. Joe's body resisted, caught in the unyielding grasp of the snow. "I'm stuck, I can't," Joe gasped, his voice strained as panic set in. It was like trying to pull a boulder from deep mud. "Stay with us, Joe. Just a little more," Jake breathed, determined to push through the barrage of doubt creeping in. He could feel his muscles tightening with the effort, each pull stealing a bit of his hope. Why wasn't it enough? The bridge creaked again, a sinister reminder of its fragility. They needed to act fast. The cracks beneath them whispered of potential disaster. "Tom, hold the sled. You might have to jump," Jake called out, shifting his focus. It was too dangerous to risk all of them. One slip on this brittle ice could spell catastrophe. They couldn't afford that. Tom nodded, his jaw set. "Ready when you are," he shouted back, readying himself at the edge, eyes wide and alert. "Now!" Jake yelled, and they surged again, desperation fueling their movements. Joe was visible now, half exposed and shivering. The moment pushed forward like a tidal wave, crashing onto the shores of hope or despair. With one last heave, Jake felt something give. They pulled again, their hearts and will coalescing into a single command. "Come on!" It erupted from their throats, powerful and unyielding. Slowly, agonizingly, Joe's upper body began to break free. A sudden burst of wind raked across the bridge, pushing against them, and in that moment of distraction, the structure beneath shivered violently. Wariness flashed in Jake's eyes as he spotted the object sticking out just beyond the crest of the bridge. What was that? "Hold on!" Jake shouted, but it felt almost too late. A low rumble filled the air, louder and more sinister than before. A crack, a deep, angry split snaked its way across the bridge. The reality of the moment crashed down like the very structure they clung to. "Jake!" Kelly's voice wavered, terror chilling her tone. 1 second. They had 1 second to act. "Tom! Let go of the sled!" Jake cried out, his urgency infectious. Leaving it behind felt wrong, but the lives at stake were far more valuable than the equipment. "Are you insane? We can't just do it!" Command ringing sharper than any wind-fueled gust, Tom released the sled, the momentum carrying it past the edge. In that instant, Jake's heart raced with fear and hope. Joe needed them. All they wanted was to save him. With one last push, Joe lunged forward, arms outstretched towards their hands. Would they catch him? Would they succeed? The bridge shook violently now, an angry beast determined to be free of their weight. "Got you!" Jake screamed, fingers locking around Joe's gloved wrist as the storm raged around them. But the question lingered as Joe struggled to pull himself up. Would the bridge hold long enough? Time stretched thin and heavy. They heard another crack, more pronounced this time. Jake's heart sank, adrenaline clawing at his resolve. Would they even make it across? The feeling was visceral and terrifying. Pull harder! Joe rasped, panic rising in his voice. The bridge wailed in defiance, and as Jake looked once more into Joe's wide eyes filled with fear, he wondered, was they rescue or ruin? Would they escape this, or were they sealing their fate? Just as they began to pull Joe up, the last question chilled Jake to the bone. Would this weight bring the whole bridge down with them? The tension in the air was palpable, thick with terror and urgency. Jake felt the sweat prickling on his brow despite the freezing conditions. He couldn't let go. They needed to save Joe, their friend, their teammate. Hold on, Joe. We're almost there. Jake gritted his teeth, exerting every ounce of strength left in his body. He could feel the strain in his arms, muscles screaming under the weight of Joe's struggle. The bridge continued to protest, creaking ominously beneath their feet. With every tremor, a new wave of fear washed over Jake. He saw the snow beneath them shifting, remnants of the ice giving way to currents of desperation. Just a little more! Kelly shouted, fervor filling her voice. But her words, though encouraging, felt fragile. Jake needed more than hope, he needed action. Now, everybody! On 3! He rallied them, feeling as though the life of his friend hung on the count. 1, 2, 3! They pulled with renewed fervor. Joe's body scraped against the icy surface, his face twisting in pain and determination. He made one last effort, his legs kicking against the unforgiving snow, and for a moment, Jake felt as if they were about to achieve the impossible. But then, the bridge shuddered violently, a sharp crack echoing like a gunshot. The world tilted. Everything slowed as the bridge churned beneath them, imperiling the very foundation they clung to. Jake! I can't, Joe cried out, his voice rising, blending with the howl of the wind. Jake's mind raced. We need to shift! He shouted, the urgency unfurling wildly within him. Tom, lean back! Kelly, keep your balance! They rocked backward for a moment, searching for a more stable position as the bridge protested their every movement. Joe added his weight to the pull, but suddenly, a terrifying realization washed over Jake. The bridge was far more fragile than he had hoped. It was as if they were trying to stabilize a sinking ship. Would it break beneath them? Come on! You can do it, Joe! Just focus! Jake urged, sweat rolling down his face, every heartbeat echoing in his chest. He couldn't think about what would happen if they didn't succeed. He couldn't allow himself to accept that failure was an option. Just as he thought about reaching for Joe's other arm, the ground crumbled, sending chunks of snow cascading down the bridge. No! 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 Panic clawed at his voice as he fought to hold on. Jake! Kelly cried, eyes wide in fear. In that moment, everything beyond the immediate reality blurred into insignificance. There was nothing but Joe's fear-filled eyes and the weight of that desperate moment. I've got you! He yelled again, fingers tightening on Joe's wrist. The bridge shook one last time, as if it were deciding their fate. Through the chaos, a glimmer of determination lit within Joe. With one last surge of energy, Joe pushed against the snow, using Jake's grip as a lifeline. With a final heave, Joe lunged upward. Jake felt Joe's weight shift, his body breaking free from the clutches of the snow. Just then, another crack echoed, sharper this time, as if the very bridge was crying out for freedom from their burden. Pull! Jake shouted as Joe clambered upwards. The sheer will of survival mixed with the hope that elbowed at their hearts. But as Joe climbed onto the bridge, something deep within Jake felt unsettled, a disquieting certainty that the real fight was far from over. As Joe hit the ground with a thud, breathless and pale, the bridge continued its defiance, shaking under their weight. What now? Tom gasped, scanning the ominous skies, while Jake turned to Joe, frantic relief flooding through him. Can we make it to the other side? Joe panted, looking back towards the point they had just escaped. Jake hesitated, fear twisting in his gut again. What awaited them on that other side? But before he could respond, the ground trembled once more, and this time, it felt final. Would they face salvation, or did the real nightmare still lie ahead? As they stood on the swaying bridge, the icy air felt like a thick shroud, stifling and heavy. Jake's heart raced, each beat resounding with doubt. Joe was alive, but now the question loomed large: could they make it across this fragile span of wood and ice before it gave way completely? "Look!" Kelly's voice cut through the chaos. She pointed toward the distant shore. The outline of trees loomed through the swirling snow, but beyond them, shadows shifted. Uncertainty gripped Jake once more. He couldn't shake the feeling that danger lurked just beyond their view, waiting to pounce when they least expected it. "We have to try." Tom's voice was firm, filled with a resolve that pushed against Jake's instinctive fear. "Every second we spend here puts us at risk." Joe nodded, though his face was as pale as the ground beneath him. "I think I can move. Just give me a second." He took a deep breath, the cold air stinging his lungs. Slowly, he got to his feet, wobbling slightly but managing to stand. The bridge swayed but didn't break. "All right, everyone," Jake said, taking control. "We need to move carefully. One step at a time. Follow my lead." He felt adrenaline coursing through him as he stepped forward, his boots crunching on the frozen surface. Each footfall felt as if it rumbled into the depths of the bridge's fragile structure. Joe, driven by determination, stepped after him. Despite the wreckage of their earlier panic, a flicker of hope ignited in Jake's chest. They were still together. Maybe they could make it, one step at a time. Kelly followed close behind, eyes darting toward the ever-shifting snow around them. Tom kept his gaze fixed ahead. Their journey felt like walking on a tightrope. Each stride could send them tumbling into the abyss beneath the bridge. But then a gust of wind swept through, howling like an angry spirit. The bridge shuddered again, and Jake's heart dropped as he heard another ominous crack. The Warnwood screamed beneath them, a final warning shot that this escape was anything but guaranteed. "Get down!" Jake shouted, dropping to one knee and gripping the edge of the railing. They all followed suit, falling low as more pieces of the bridge cracked off and tumbled into the icy water below. "What are we going to do?" Kelly whimpered, eyes wide. Panic flared for a brief moment, and Jake felt the pressure of their situation pinching his chest. "Stay calm. We can do this. We just need to wait it out." He spoke with a confidence he barely felt, his mind racing to find a solution. Joe gritted his teeth, eyes darkening with fear but also determination. "If we can just reach that tree line over there," he gestured toward the dark trees on the other side, revealing a hint of their shadowy outline through the falling snow, "we'll have cover. They can't find us in the woods. What if the bridge goes after us?" Stricken doubt hung in the air as Tom voiced everyone's fear. "I don't think it has much time left," Jake replied, steel creeping into his voice. "But we can't just stay here. It's going to collapse. We move now. We either get across or we don't." The decision loomed over them, but they were out of options. With a shared glance, they nodded as one, then they pushed off, moving as fast as they could without drawing attention to themselves. As they sprinted, the wind screamed in their ears. The bridge groaned beneath their feet, shuddering with every step. Behind them, the sounds of crackling wood echoed like rolling thunder, reminding them that their time was running out. Jake felt the warmth of hope spilling through him, mingling with the cold anxiety gripping his heart. Just a few more steps, and they could feel the solid earth beneath them, but something caught Jake's eye. Was it a mere shadow or something moving among the trees? His breath caught in his throat as he thought he saw a figure shifting in the distance, waiting. Was it friend or foe? "Keep moving," he urged, heart pounding. Yet, with uncertainty tightening his chest, he couldn't shake the feeling that whatever danger they had dodged on the bridge was still lurking just ahead, waiting for its moment to strike. What would they find when they reached that tree line? They pushed forward, adrenaline propelling them despite the tremors beneath their feet. The wind howled, chilling their skin, but Jake's focus narrowed on the approaching tree line. Just a few more yards. He could visualize the trees wrapping around them like guardians, offering some form of safety from whatever shadows lurked beyond. "Stay tight," Jake shouted, urging everyone to bunch closer together. The uncertainty of what lay behind was matched only by the fear of what might be ahead. The bridge creaked as if echoing their apprehension, and he knew they couldn't afford to falter. Joe stumbled, his foot catching on an old beam. Jake instinctively reached back, steadying him. "You got this," he murmured. Joe nodded, pushing through his fear, but every second felt stretched, the weight of their fate heavy in the air. Finally, they closed in on the tree line. The skeletal branches loomed above, the shadowy foliage beckoning with the promise of concealment. Just a few more steps. Jake inhaled sharply, urging himself to believe they could leave the bridge behind. Then it happened. A horrific crack echoed from the bridge. The wood buckled and splintered, the structure collapsing in slow motion behind them. "Run!" Jake screamed, his voice slicing through the chaos. They sprinted the final stretch, legs burning, hearts racing. Tom burst forward, narrowly avoiding the snapping boards that fell into the freezing waters. With one last desperate push, the four of them reached the edge of the safety of the trees, tumbling into the thick underbrush. They collapsed onto the snow-covered ground, gasping for breath, their hearts thundering against the silence that followed. For a moment, they lay there, catching their breath, a mix of relief and dread swirling around them. We made it," Kelly said between ragged breaths, half laughing, half crying. She brushed the snowflakes from her hair, her face flushed with exhilaration. Jake exhaled deeply, but his relief was tempered by the haunting thought of what awaited them in the forest. The shadows among the trees felt sinister. "Yeah, but that doesn't mean we're safe," he replied, glancing back toward the bridge. Even now, the sound of cracking wood reverberated faintly, a reminder of their escape. Joe's expression was grave. "What about that figure we saw?" He squinted into the shadows. "We need to keep moving. If it's following us or if it's something worse? Tom echoed, fear creeping into his voice. What could be worse than almost falling to our deaths? Suddenly, a rustle came from behind a tree, silencing them all. Jake's heart raced again, pounding so loud in his ears that he could barely think. They held their breaths, eyes darting toward the sound. "Guys, don't panic," Jake whispered. "Maybe it's just an animal." But deep down, he felt the familiar grip of terror twisting in his gut. Footsteps heavy and deliberate. The figure stepped into view. "Who's there?" Jake called out, trying to sound confident, but his voice wavered. The shape moved closer, obscured by swirling snow, revealing a dark silhouette. His instincts screamed at him to run again, but they were frozen in place. Is it friendly?" Kelly murmured, her voice trembling. Jake's mind raced through every scenario. What if this was their salvation? Or was it a predator in disguise? "Step forward and show yourself," he shouted, his heart in his throat as they waited for the truth behind the looming figure. What would they find? Hope, danger, or something even worse? The figure emerged from the swirling snow, a mass of shadow and uncertainty. But as the icy wind danced around them, clarity struck. It was Sam, a fellow townsman, clad in winter gear, his breath visible in the frigid air. Jake felt a strange mixture of relief wash over him as recognition blossomed into hope. "Sam!" he called out, stepping closer despite the caution bubbling in his mind. "Jake!" Sam shouted back, anxiety heavy in his voice. "I've been looking for you guys. The bridge is down, and people are in shock. We need to get everyone to the community center now." Jake's heart raced. A mix of fear and relief surged within him, but he was grateful for the direction. Sam's urgency spiraled into action, venturing deeper into the trees toward town. "This way!" He beckoned, and without hesitation, Jake grabbed Joe's arm, urging him forward, while Kelly fell in line behind them. Tom hesitated, eyes scanning the darkness. "Wait. Are we sure it's safe?" "It's better than standing around waiting for something worse," Jake replied, his resolve firm. "Come on!" As they dashed through the underbrush, the shadows of the trees began to feel less threatening. Hope took root once again as they navigated closer to the heart of town. Sam filled them in as they ran. The community center is filled with people gathering supplies. "It's warm in there, but we need to get those still trapped back home." "Right," Jake replied, determination shooting through his veins. "We need to stay together this time." Their bond had sparked a flame of combined strength, and Jake couldn't help but feel it flourish as they pressed forward. Finally, they reached the clearing, the community center brightly lit against the backdrop of the storm. Jake's heart swelled with amazement. The earlier uncertainty surrounding their unity had been illuminated by flickering lights and the vibrant atmosphere of camaraderie inside. Neighbors hugged. Children laughed, their giggles ringing essence through the chilling air. The weight of despair that had settled for too long in their town began to lift, bubble away like the heat from a flame warming the room. Jake entered, his heart full. The room was a mosaic of humanity, people working together, sharing stories of resilience. He caught sight of Mrs. Henderson stirring her famous chili, Tom organizing a food line, and Kelly laughing with others, walls of ice melting around them. The sight brought tears to his eyes. They were alive. They were thriving against the odds. "Look who's back!" someone called, sparking applause as Jake and his friends stepped into the warmth. Their atmosphere buzzed with energy, as if each hand that worked together was a thread tying the community back together. "A lot has changed," Jake said to Sam, a smile breaking through the collected worries. "But we fight for each other now." "Let us keep it that way," Sam replied, a twinkle of mischief in his eye. "What's the plan?" "We help those who need it," Jake said, the certainty ringing in his tone. "We make sure no one feels alone again." This was just the beginning. As the night wore on, they set to work, Jakesfully making blankets, divvying up supplies, and even crowding around with concerned faces for those still out searching for family. The storm may have taken its toll on their town, but it also forged a new kind of strength. Hope surged through each person, a reminder that there was light even in the darkest of times. They were no longer just a collection of neighbors. They were a family, weathering the storm together, and suddenly, the warmth in Jake's heart blazed bright, not just for the community he fought to rally, but for the family he was redefining with every moment they shared. The past didn't need to dictate their future. Together, they could pave a new path. As dawn broke, illuminating the remnants of snow, Jake stood with Joe, Kelly, and Tom at the community center. The air carried the scent of fresh bread, laughter mingled with the crunch of packing boxes. "We did it," Kelly murmured softly. "We really did it." "Yes," Jake answered, his voice thick with emotion. "And we'll keep doing it." The blizzard had shown them they could overcome anything together. The power of community surged within him, igniting a fire of hope that would never dim. They were strong. They would rise together. As the doors of the community center opened to face the new day, it ushered in the promise of a fresh start. They stood united, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, not as individuals, but as a resilient family. Now was their moment, the beginning of a new chapter together. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss these exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to help fuel the algorithm. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. They deserve hope too.